Martin, you know what I'm going to ask you?
Why am I so fly?
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing, Martin? How you doing?
Son of a bitch.
You knew this was going to happen, Martin. How you doing?
I'm gonna launch a war on you, you son of a bitch.
You're gonna launch a what is your cast?
First war in history it's ever been launched because somebody asked somebody how they're doing.
Wow, quite the aggressor you are.
Well, I mean, I look around my office right now and I've got a Soviet Union hat in my closet. I've got Dostoevsky on my printer, and I've got a picture of St. Petersburg.
I can understand.
Somebody saw this.
I can understand why you have almost all that stuff except the picture of St. Petersburg.
Oh, it was a Christmas gift from my sister-in-law.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's nice, man. It's I'm not familiar with the geography of St. Petersburg, but it has the it's not a photograph, it's a painting. And I think it's that famous bridge. I don't even know what the bridge is called, even though I probably read it in Crime and Punishment, but
well, let's find out.
It's beautiful.
Saint.
Look at that bridge. What is that bridge? And you know them Russian buildings that look like they got onions coming up from the top?
Of course. There's a lot of bridges in St. Petersburg.
As all the Russian people say, fuck you, you American onions. I'll throw an onion up your ass.
Is that what Russians actually say? I don't think I've heard a Russian ever say that. I don't think I've heard a single fucking Russian ever say that to me or anyone. I think you made that up.
I don't think they like me calling their building, the top of some of their buildings look like onions.
Maybe it's Palace Bridge is what you're thinking of. I don't know. Palace Bridge kind of has... It looks more modern.
Is it next to this building that looks like it has onions coming out of the top?
Let me see. I don't see... No.
Oh.
Palace Bridge is not that. Is it...
You know, I'll make a confession, man. I like Russia. I like Russian history and Russian literature. There is no greater literature in this world in the 19th century than Russian literature.
I agree.
You can't beat it.
You're not going to get any disagreement from me.
American literature.
If you're going
get out of here.
If you're going to be a Russophile, there's really no better reason to be a Russophile than that. Is it the blue? Yeah. Is it the Blue Bridge? Looks like
I don't know.
Because it is near what looks like a building that you've described. And it's like a very small little blue bridge. People are just walking over it.
Wait a minute. You could... I sent a picture to you and our buddy.
Oh, you sent a picture? Did you?
Yeah. Go to our with our buddy from Morocco.
Hold on.
It's up there. Yeah. Remember, I was trying to tell y'all. I was trying to tell y'all, like.
Yeah. That's a cute little bridge. I don't know if this is the same bridge or not, because this is not the same building I see in this picture. It's just, I don't know. That's a nice little painting, though.
Oh yeah. And guess what? My sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
The way I love Russia, she loves Germany. So of course she's being accused of being a Nazi, even though obviously she's not a Nazi. Jesus. She just likes German language and German history. You can like that stuff without being a freaking Nazi. Just like I like Russia I hate Putin.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yes, that is very true. I was going to make a quick little Nazi joke, but you know what? Yeah, you intercepted me, so I'm not going to. One could say you like blitzed me to it. You know, I just couldn't keep up.
I got a nasty blitz.
So if all of our little hints have not been obvious enough, what we're probably going to talk about today is related to recent events.
Yes.
Do you want to guess what we're going to talk about today, dear audience?
We're going to talk about 19th century Russian literature and why The Brothers Karamazov is one of the best books in the history of literature.
I think that sounds swell. The last Russian literature I've probably ever read was Chekhov. and it was The Student.
Oh,
It's literally the
man.
shortest. Literally, the only thing I read by Chekhov is like the shortest thing ever written by Chekhov. And it was It was the recommendation of Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West.
Oh yeah.
Because he'll tell anybody if you give him the chance, to sit back in your chair, sip some cognac, and read some Chekhov. That's how that guy likes to vibe in his spare time.
Man, I'll take any of them Russian dudes, man. Woo! I'll take them all at the same time, man. Woo!
How will you take them all? And in what context will you take them all?
Reading.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, dude, and in the 19th century too, Russian revolutionaries. Oh man, you think we got like leftists now here in the U.S. and around the world?
Mm-hmm.
They can't compete with the freaking revolution with the leftists in 19th century Russia, especially the latter part of the century. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, even before you had guys like Vladimir Lenin, you had like political nihilists like Nechayev making what some commentators would call a non-binary fuss against the czarist state.
Yeah. And man, there's this great book that was recommended to me by a professor because I'm like, yeah, I love 19th century Russia. And they're like, you need to read the book called Young Russia.
Young Russia?
The Genesis of Russian Radicalism in the 1860s by Abbott Gleason. Woo! I mean, it goes into depth about everything, about the revolutionaries in the 1860s, and it was a great read.
The Genesis of Russian Radicalism. Let's take a look at that. I'm looking at Amazon right now, in fact.
Yeah, I am too, although I want to get this from someplace other than Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Interesting. There's not a whole lot of...
Yeah.
Amazon barely has shit to say about this. What the fuck?
I think it's out of print, actually.
Seriously? I mean, they're selling it for cheap. They're selling it for dirt cheap on here.
Huh?
Yeah, you can get like a paperback for $5, and you can get the hardcover for just a little over $6.
I just wonder where my copy went, man. You've seen my book collection.
Yeah. You have a lot of old porn.
And you've also seen this one particular girl and impressed by my book collection.
She really did. She really was curious how big your book collection was.
Oh yeah, that's it, baby. It fits about 2 shelves. You understand what I'm saying? I don't need more than 2. I need 3. I need 4. I need as many shelves, baby, as you can. I told her that. You know what she said? She said, "Oh man, you are such a good lover, man." You know what I'm saying? Woo! I said, "Baby, you know what I'm saying."
Who are you channeling here?
That was a very poor imitation of Dusty Rhodes.
No shit. I'm like, there's no way this can be Clarence Thomas. Who could this be?
Clarence the Supreme Court Justice?
No, not that guy. Fuck.
I never heard him speak, actually.
Not Clarence Thomas, but fuck, the other guy. I'm stroking. That song?
Oh, Clarence, hold on. Let me put that in the Google. Oh my gosh. Clarence Carter.
Clarence Carter. I can imagine fucking the Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas, singing about how he's stroking.
Oh, we gotta play for the people. You understand?
We're trying to be serious. We're trying.
We gotta distract people. You know what I'm saying?
I guess, what can you do in times like this but bring levity where you can?
We gotta distract them with this kind of music.
Are you okay? I will do it.
I don't know.
Are you pulling it up on your phone? They're gonna hold on. I'll show you how it's really done.
Oh, all right. You saw Dusty. Hold on, wait a minute. So go ahead, do what you gotta do. Mm-hmm. But everybody out there who knows what these two people look like and sound like, Clarence Thomas and Dusty Rhodes, and you get Clarence Carter.
I guess.
I'm stoking, buddy. I'm stoking. Yeah, you don't see him, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because Clarence Carter never had the lisp.
Holy shit, my face is already hurt. Whoa. What a thunk.
What time
Is it
of
playing?
day? Yes. What time of day do you make love?
Just before breakfast. Have
You ever made love?
while you watch the
Late show?
Well, let me ask you this.
Oh my god. Why am I playing this still?
Made love on a couch?
On a couch? I'm gonna...
We gotta distract ourselves before we get to the serious geopolitical stuff.
Absolutely. Seat of a car. It's almost done. Oh wait.
Remember one time I made love
You know
on
what, this
the
reminds me of our mutual buddy here.
I think I know who you're
man.
referring to.
Oh man.
That's enough stroking. Thank you, Clarence Carter. And Clarence Thomas.
Conservative Supreme Court Justice.
Okay, if you're a conservative Supreme Court justice, there's no way you're stroking. I have a feeling...
Apparently he was doing that with Anita Hill.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, she's the one. Didn't she like file sexual harassment charges against him? I don't know.
Second, that's not stroking.
Oh no.
If you're sexually harassing people, you're not stroking. Let's be real.
Oh no. Yeah, man. That's not cool.
Yeah, comparing sexual harassment to stroking is like comparing a military operation to an invasion.
Yes. So let's get to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
See, we were able to build like a very loose tangential connection between
Shoot.
the bullshit we just talked about and what we will
Shit.
talk about today.
Hey, I don't think Putin is stroking his ego.
Man, can you imagine Putin right now? That dude is probably sleeping on the couch in the Kremlin right now.
Well, I heard he doesn't even like go to the Kremlin as much. I heard he's getting more erratic, but I don't know what to trust. I mean, can we really know anything definitively right now?
Unless you're on the ground experiencing it firsthand, probably not. But whether he's married now or has a mistress, given the way things are, that dude is sleeping on a couch in some building.
He better have a mistress, or he's not a fucking world leader. What kind of world leader wouldn't have a mistress?
What kind of autocrat are you if you don't have a mistress? For that matter?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't say world leader. I should say like autocrat. There you go. Because, I don't condone adultery.
Yeah.
But if you're morally bankrupt to be an autocrat, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you got a wifey, girlfriend, and mistress.
Except him. I don't know. This whole thing is very small dick energy, if you ask me. But we're not here to talk about dicks or dick sizes. Here to talk about Russia. We're here to talk about Ukraine. Here to talk about information. Here to talk about updates in the big situation.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, did I just make a rhyme? Holy shit. I just rhymed.
Without even trying.
Happy for myself. So,
I'll teach you how to flow with the codeine rap.
hey, yo, gotta give my blow.
Yeah, one of the things that came about with me, so I wrote an outline before we started.
Mm-hmm. Ain't you fancy?
Well, I was just thinking about, because I'm actually teaching, I'm a teacher. I'm actually teaching this in one of my courses. So one of the big things about teaching this is just finding reliable information, like what is happening. How do we find what is happening? Because I'm sure you've seen fake information on both sides, like the ghost of Kyiv.
Mm-hmm.
That turned out to be a popcorn fart,
Oh, yeah?
unfortunately.
I know. But can we make it spiritually real, though? Can we just make it up and just kind of will it into reality?
What is this, religious mumbo jumbo over here?
Maybe. Maybe if we, all collectively believe in the ghost of Kiev, we can create him for real. And he will appear in this material plane as an avatar of war, shooting down Russian fighters.
shit.
Literally,
So what is this?
like a Ukrainian reincarnation of the war god Guan Yu.
Hell yeah, man.
His fighter jet is his red hair.
Hell yeah, it'd be like World War One, where the fighter pilots in World War One were like the knights of the legends. They were like the knights of King Arthur's court, man. The stories are legendary.
The fucking Red Baron.
Well, Rickenbacker, Eddie Rickenbacker too. Of the man, I mean, whew,
Hell yeah.
awesome time, man. It wasn't an awesome time. Did I say awesome times? Gosh, horrible. But
Yeah.
it was a time of mythology, and at the time you didn't really know what was going on. So that's what I mean by awesome. I meant like fantastical, as in it's hard to believe. So that's one thing that I'm dealing with now. Like, how the hell do I know what's going on? So one of the things I've been doing is I've been very careful about what news sources I listen to. I've been just watching live feeds of NBC News, ABC News, CBS News. I've also been going back and forth to CNN.com and FoxNews.com to see what they're focusing on. Because one of the things I noticed that Fox News is focusing on is they seem to be more critical of Biden. But it's weird because I think both of them, both CNN and Fox News, they seem to both agree on the sanctions, and they seem to both agree that Putin is the aggressor here, that he's the one who's responsible for all this.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to, and I'm also getting on YouTube sites like The Hill. The Hill is pretty. I find The Hill to be balanced somewhat. I also go to a more leftist site, Majority Report with Sam Cedar, Time Magazine. So I'm trying to use different sources here because we don't want to be accused of, believing one source, holding one source up like it's some golden turd. You know what I'm saying?
Believing consuming propaganda and, having either a Western, centric narrative or what have you.
Yes. Yeah. And, actually, Sam Cedar actually brought attention to this today in one of his live streams when he actually played some reporters when this conflict between Russia and Ukraine broke out. Some of these reporters were talking about it's a more civilized nation than, say, like Afghanistan or something. I'm like, whoa.
What the fuck?
No. Oh, well, let me show you. Let me show it for our audience. And also, too, it really brought home to me, like, one of the things, too, I'm studying with my class, in this class as well, is what's Afghanistan like today? And, man, the situation in Afghanistan is just, it's disturbing.
It's nightmarish, dude. Like, it's a legit humanitarian crisis right now.
Yeah. Like, people are selling their children to
buy food.
To buy food. And what I mean by selling children is the way from what I've been reading about it in Afghanistan is they're selling children to future suitors. So it's sort of like, yeah. So it's sort of like this fucking nasty old guy. Well, I wouldn't even say old, and like a 20-year-old guy sees a fucking 7-year-old girl and is like, yeah, I'm gonna marry her someday. Can I buy her from you? And I guess it's like you're buying a marriage in the future. So, man, I can't even put it around it. But let me link this story to you. And I don't think they would mind if we play this.
I already played Clarence Carter.
Okay.
Let's see here.
So
Media's Insidious. Okay.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
So this is from the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. Media's insidious racism exposed in Ukrainian crisis. So I'm going to play this here video.
Well, not the whole thing, but just I'll show you what they're going to show you are some examples of some reporters reporting on this, and you can see that there's this white supremacy kind of in the back of their mind. It's not that these people are like openly racist, these reporters who they quote here, but it's more like there's this whole thing where since this is a European conflict, it seems to be more important because it's quote unquote white people.
Yeah. So I'm going to play the video right now.
A lot of reasons one could point to as to why what's happening with Russia's invasion of Ukraine could resonate.
I also have this sped up by like 2 times.
In a different way than in other conflicts. Because Europe is the site of the last 2 world wars, the only 2 world wars.
And I can't hear it too, so
Russia,
let me know when they
former
stop.
superpower, arguably, at least militarily, still one of the superpowers, I guess.
Talking about Russia right now.
And there's a lot of, sort of and nuclear weapons. I mean, and so there's a lot of reason why this conflict would get more attention than, say, the Saudis and our involvement in that assault on Yemen.
And the comments too are great.
Is going to end up killing and has killed.
Mention, the Saudis, what they're doing in
Yemen. People. In Afghanistan, Joe Biden just taking that money, and there's no guarantee that $7 billion it had
mentioning
allowed to go back to the Taliban would alleviate any or all of the suffering in Afghanistan, although you could imagine it would alleviate some. There are millions of people in Afghanistan who are looking at potential starvation right now. And so there's no, these are apples and oranges things, and it's not to take away from what's going on in Ukraine. But it's just something to be aware of, and I think we're going to talk about this more.
I'm not trying to take anything away from Ukraine, but it's been
part of the reason why there's so much more attention.
Trying to be aware of it.
Again, I don't think it's all the reason, and I don't think it's maybe not even the majority.
And I'll explain too why this is
because of who
this is a very important conflict, which we all should care about, the Ukraine-Russia thing.
CBS News foreign correspondent Charlie Delgado, who has apologized for this, but nonetheless, it's revealing. It's not. This is not about Charles Delgado.
He's getting into this.
We've got more reporter. It's really, in many respects, about all of us. But here it is.
Now with the Russians marching in, it's changed the calculus entirely. Tens of thousands of people try to flee the city. There will be many more. People are hiding out in bomb shelters. But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that
he immediately backtracked and said European.
All right, let's just be clear. Part of the reason why Iraq had conflict for decades was because we started bombing and invading them at one point. Now, of course, there was also the Iran war prior to that, and the war with Kuwait, prior to that.
But the United States deliberately targeted Iraq's water purification infrastructure systems, and knowing it would spread disease. And so, that might have contributed to the lack of civilization that he's referencing. Right. It's about the color of people's skin, let's be real.
I mean, the U.S. and its allies targeting things like, Iraqi water supplies and shit like that.
Ongoing conflict since 2014. I mean, but yes, it is about race. It is about,
it's about
some notion of economic development, I guess.
Notions of economic development.
These are people who look like us.
Yeah, it's about white supremacy. European and American white man's version, social Darwinism.
Here's NBC News correspondent Kelly Kobiela.
Another example.
These are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine, and that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians. They're white. They're very similar to people.
The next one's pretty funny.
And look, there is an aspect of human nature where it's like, oh my gosh, my kid wears clothes just like that and has that same whatever it is, the Chatty Cathy doll or whatever.
She's like, wow, that one. They look like us, kind of thing.
It is pretty stunning when you contemplate it. And again, there are a lot of other factors associated with this. There's nukes involved in this. There's our longtime rival from the Cold War. But when you look at it just in terms of sheer human misery,
human misery.
We're not at the level of where we are in Yemen or in Afghanistan or in Iraq or in Syria. I could keep going on in Libya.
Yeah, he's right.
This is an example of it.
So he kind of did say that, if you're talking about the scale of human misery in these places, right? Whether it's Iraq or Yemen and Afghanistan, Ukraine is nothing like that, right? It's still a functioning, materially speaking, functioning country, right?
Yeah, people elected democracy.
Yeah, people in Ukraine are not having to sell their kidneys to feed their families and shit like that. Yeah. And then again, though, Ukraine is also not a country that has been bombed to the fucking Stone Age. Not yet.
That's weird. Yeah.
Not yet, of course.
As of this recording,
Ukraine has not been bombed into the Stone Age. It has been bombed, but not to the Stone Age. So, yeah, hopefully it doesn't get that far. But yeah, he's making a very good case here, how there is a very implicit bias, and sometimes, depending on the source, explicit bias about the media, especially towards, let's face it, what we call white issues.
Yeah. White, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say, I say European / American.
Yeah, that would be more, I think that'd be more accurate because, whiteness in I think it's harder to really apply, right? I mean, generally speaking, we in countries like the United States and, UK or whatever, we would associate Ukrainians as a quote unquote white country. And when we're doing that, isn't that really just whiteness talking? It's kind of like a filter that the institution of whiteness hoists on you. So it conditions you to think like that. If, you're racialized as white. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, whiteness is
Did
a
they get
factor.
to the part in the video where that guy said "fuck off"?
Oh, I stopped playing around the 6-minute mark.
There's a video where some guy, I think some guy who's not white, was playing. He was recording something on his screen from Al Jazeera.
Okay.
And at the end of it, he said "fuck off." It's at the 6-minute mark and 15. The video starts at the 6-minute mark and 14. 6 minute 14 seconds. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna play that part real quick. I'm gonna slow this down, of course, back to its normal speed for the audience sake. I know you all love Sam Cedar, and so do I. It's playing now.
Here's Al Jazeera's Peter Dobby.
Peter Dobby from Al Jazeera.
Population. As you're talking to us, Matthew, we're playing in the latest pictures of some of the refugees trying to get on trains or trying to get out of Ukraine. And what's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm looking to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next
European
door
families.
Fuck off.
That was somebody else who was watching that. But the sentiment.
The immediate fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a pretty cool part. I just wanted to hear that. Yeah, so that one of the things that I've been struggling with too is just where do you get some reliable information? And to be honest, unless at this point in the conflict, unless we are actually like on the ground, primary source there, unless we're like from the government getting reliable intelligence from our government, as government officials do, we honestly don't know 100% what's going on.
Right. Honestly, some of the non-news sources that I have been kind of relying on for information about this are either kind of like in Europe in different parts.
Ooh, okay.
Like one guy who I've kind of follow, have you heard of a YouTuber by the name of Adam something?
Hold on, let me look. No, let me look him up here. Adam something. You put in Adam and something pops up. Wow, this guy's popular.
Yeah, he does a lot of really great videos. But lately, I mean, most of his content prior to this war was about engineering-related stuff. And more specifically, pointing out like why a lot of Tesla projects and Elon Musk ideas are fucking stupid and just really waste of time. And offering better solutions. But lately, he's actually been kind of like going in war coverage mode. So he is a Hungarian engineer. I don't know which country he lives in. He's currently in Czechia. Okay. So he's a Hungarian engineer living in Czechia. And he's been very meticulous about the sources that he posts and all that. So he's been pretty great at sussing out, reliable sources here and there. Another one, actually, he also is a YouTuber. Again, he's not a fucking, let me see. His YouTube channel is called Warlocracy. And I'll show you that. But you can also find him on Twitter. So.
What? Warlock?
I'll show you here. There you go.
Okay. This Adam something guy?
No, this other guy I just showed you.
Oh, so we got a new guy. Sorry.
So this guy, YouTube channel's named Warlocracy. I will also share his Twitter with you real quick because he's been covering a lot on that. But you can also find information that he's posted about the war in his community tab on YouTube. So this guy, he's not a journalist. This dude makes narrative reviews about video games and shit. He's a former powerlifter. Lived in the EU, Russia, and Belarus. Okay. He's currently in Russia right now. I think he says he lives in Moscow. And he's been, visiting protests and making videos. Oh shit! I forgot to link you to this man's Twitter.
A weightlifter, animal rights activist. I like this. A video gamer. I like this guy. Oh hell yeah!
Like, I feel
I'm in love, baby.
Yeah, sometimes the best sources you can get are people who are in the vicinity, or at least close to the vicinity. So he is currently living in Moscow, and some of his videos are around protests that are occurring across Moscow. He's received some intimidation, actually. He posted that a guy sent him a message or a tweet. Yeah, someone on Twitter took a picture of his front door and sent it to him. And of course, it's in Russian, so I can't fucking read it. But it's meant to be an intimidation tactic. Yeah. So
speaking of these like protests in Russia too, that's one thing in which I think can also stop this war too. Is if let's take it back to I don't know. This will be. Let's take it back to 1905. When the Russians protested and they got the Duma as a result. You remember during 1905, it was called Bloody Sunday, if I believe?
Wasn't that the No, was that the... No, it was not the coronation of Tsar Nicholas. That was a different incident. I know what you're talking about, though. It was
I think, too, wasn't this to protest the Russo-Japanese War in 1905? I don't know, though. Hold on. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know, wasn't the Duma, the Russian parliament, established after this?
So, yeah, Bloody Sunday, I'm looking up right now. 1905 in St. Petersburg, when unarmed demonstrators, led by Father Gregory Gapon, were fired upon by soldiers of the Imperial Guard as they marched towards the Winter Palace to present a petition to Tsar Nicholas of Russia. Bloody Sunday caused grave consequences for the Tsarist autocracy governing Imperial Russia. The events in St. Petersburg provoked public outrage and a series of massive strikes that spread quickly to the industrial centers of the Russian Empire. The massacre is considered to be the start of the active phase of the Revolution of 1905.
Yes.
Yeah. In addition to the 1905 revolution, historians such as Lionel Cochin, in his book, Russia and Revolution, 1890 to 1918, view the events of Bloody Sunday to be one of the key events which led to the Russian Revolution of 1917.
So, if I don't know if like the majority of Russians are against the war, but it seems like it. I don't know, or I don't know.
I don't know. I know a lot of them fucking are. That's for sure. Even
that's why people are saying Putin's war, not Russian, because we don't want to bemoan. We don't want to invade the Russian people.
Yeah, and well, not only that too. Like there are Russian supporters of Vladimir Putin who are against the war itself too. You know, Russians, like any other people, are not a fucking hive mind. Also, to answer your earlier question, yeah, it did.
Establish a Duma.
Yeah, Tsar attempted to appease the people of the Duma. However, the autocracy eventually resorted to brute force near the end of 1905 in order to curtail the burgeoning strike movement that continued to spread. So, yep, you are right.
See, I remember that from history. But yeah, so I mean, there's nothing the police, whatever the hell, can do if millions upon millions protest. What can they do? Kill millions and kill millions and kill millions? Or maybe I'm just having too much of a sunny outlook.
Yeah, I hope that outlook is correct. To my I know over, I don't know how many thousand people have been arrested in protests and shit like that. But yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, no one has fucking died at a protest yet. So
well, here's the thing, too. To protest right now in Putin's Russia, you got to have balls the size of King Kong. You understand what I'm saying?
Ball.
Because they will put you in a prison for the rest of your life, those fucking dirty Russian government. That dirty Russian government led by Putin.
Balls, just giant balls dragging around the streets of Moscow.
You elephantitis, motherfucker.
Having to use wheelbarrows to carry their massive nuts.
Like South Park, yeah. Oh, yeah. But man, and also too, I think too, if the rich people, the elites stand up to Putin, what can they do?
I mean,
come on, we all know the elites run the fucking governments of the world.
Yeah, there's always, if you want to use Marxist terminology, there's always a bourgeoisie, right? Now, the structure and the role they play can vary from place to place, but any autocracy that relies on the foundation of an oligarchy, can you really call that an autocracy? So
of the oligarchy, yeah, of the oligarchs.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I am kind of curious to see how these sanctions will play out. I mean, no matter what, I know it's going to hurt. I mean, it's already starting to hurt, like, average Russian people. But at the same time, because like I feel like no matter what Western countries do, whether it's like so-called targeted sanctions or just blanket sanctions or whatever, it's gonna fall back on Russian working class people at the end of the day too. And this war is not their fault. They didn't consent to a war. They didn't want a war.
They didn't consent to Putin.
Not really. Yeah. So honestly, I don't know what the right move is to make here. And you know what? It's
a nuclear war.
It's definitely not a nuclear fucking war, which I do not think is going to obviously come to that. But yeah, shit's fucking bonkers, yo.
Yeah. And I've also been trying to get Putin's perspective as well, right? Because I wanted to before we move on to why is this happening, what is currently happening, I think the people out there know what's currently happening, because this can change by the time people hear this. So move on to why this is happening in my outline.
Yeah.
Okay. So why this is happening, what I tried to do is I'm trying to get Putin's perspective, Zelensky's perspective, and Biden/NATO's perspective on this. And one of the things I did to get Putin's perspective is to read his speech. And I was wanting to analyze that with you and our audience.
Okay. I see.
I think that'd be a great idea. So I have a transcript of Putin's speech on February 24th. His televised address to Russia on Ukraine. I got it from Bloomberg.com, and I actually copied and pasted it in the document if you don't want to go to that website.
Oh, I see it right here. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I figured we could break this down a little bit with what we both collectively know about history, and I guess compare it with other situations like this. Maybe compare it with what Napoleon said, or with what Hitler said, what other aggressors in world history have said as they conduct their aggressions.
Hear, hear.
All right. So, yeah, let's break down this speech word for word. Yeah. And see what we can do. So,
all right.
Let's do it. All right. Deep breaths out there, y'all. All right, so here it begins. Dear citizens of Russia, dear friends. So automatically pause. So he's talking to the citizens of Russia and friends, which I'm taking to mean allied countries, or who he thinks are allies.
I think he's referring to me. I feel like he's calling me friend, and I feel very warm inside when he does that.
Oh, is that because he has his shirt off, and you're remembering when he has his shirt off?
Yeah, it was kind of weird that he was shirtless when he made that speech, and he's like flexing his pecs, throughout the whole time. Wonder why he was wearing bike shorts too, like neon green bike shorts.
People, baby.
Yeah, and he had it looked like Percocets on the table in front of him.
Oh, no, you mean Percocets?
Percocets?
If you don't know what we're talking about by Percocets, y'all, you gotta listen to the last episode, because, wow.
So
we're talking about, wait a minute. Yeah, hilarious. All right, Star Wars and Percocets. There you go.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's addressing obviously the citizens of Russia and Russian allies and so on and so forth.
So he's saying, today I again consider it necessary to return to the tragic events taking place in Donbass, is it? Or Donbass?
Donbass.
Donbass. And the key issues of ensuring the security of Russia itself. So he's talking about one of the separatist regions, right, of Ukraine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I did some digging into this a little bit, too. According to Wikipedia, 17% of Ukrainians are of Russian ethnicity or nationality. I don't know what the difference is. So it could be that those areas that are separatist want to be, or they're controlled by people who want to be part of Russia. I mean, what do you know about that?
For the most part, yeah. So, these breakaway republics, right?
Okay.
They're predominantly Russian speaking, of course. Whether Russian nationality would be if they held citizenship, I think. Whereas I think it's just like an ethnic or culturally Russian part of Ukraine.
Excellent. So now we're going back to World War One.
Mm-hmm.
You remember nationalism and how nationalism was a huge cause of World War One?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay, so now we're back in World War One times. Ethnic nationalism, y'all. Excluding people. You're not part of my people. Blah, blah, blah. That bullshit. Okay. Mm-hmm. Back in time, baby.
Yeah. So, I should also point out that if we're talking about also Crimea, right? So,
oh yeah.
Interesting place. One could argue that, the Russians there are not indigenous. A little bit of a history lesson. So, why you got so many Russian-speaking folks in Crimea? Well, it's kind of a long history, and you can kind of go back to the Soviet Union, right? So, after the Russian famine of 1921, there was a pretty bad period of starvation across Crimea.
During the Russian Civil War, right?
Around that, yeah.
Okay.
So, you had like more than 100,000 Crimean Tatars starve to death. And tens of thousands of them flee to Turkey or Romania. This isn't including earlier, the earlier period of what's called de-Tatarization. And it was basically, it refers to different periods during the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union to basically ethnically cleanse the Crimea of, the ethnic Crimean Tatars. So while this was happening, thousands more ended up being deported or being killed during the collectivization process between 1928 and 1929. So during this time too, like these policies start to contribute to this major nationwide famine, and it goes all the way to like 1931 to 1933.
Yeah, now we're getting into the Ukrainian, how do you say the word Holodomor? I'm sorry.
Holodomor?
Yeah, that where a lot of the Ukrainians starved to death.
Yeah, depending on who you ask, some will say it's a genocide, and some will say it was a catastrophe that Soviet neglect or mismanagement contributed to. But essentially, what I'm kind of getting to is that a lot of these people or regions that are, Russian speaking today, that were once part of Ukraine, experienced multiple periods of ethnic cleansing to make them Russian.
Okay.
And this was also during the time of Stalin's purges too. So a lot of folks, statesmen and intellectuals were imprisoned and killed on some trumped up charges. So fast forward to 1944, right? The entire Crimean Tatar population is basically deported to parts of Central Asia, to like Uzbekistan. And this was ordered by Joseph Stalin at the time. And despite, Crimean Tatars actually serving in the Red Army, participating in World War II, that didn't really save them from deportation, unfortunately. So, there's different reasons for why this happened too. I'm not saying they're justified in any fucking sense, but there's motivations for these things that kind of happen, right? So like some of the researchers that kind of tackle this particular period say that Crimea's geopolitical position fueled, the Soviet perception that Crimean Tatars were a threat because they're not Russian. So, I mean, there's also other reasons too, but I guess, the whole point is me saying that there are parts, of these breakaway republics now that were not always Russian. They are now. And I'm not saying, they should be deported or they don't belong there. And I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just pointing out that those regions were not always Russian. Even if they are primarily Russian now, they weren't always that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's keep going.
All right. Yeah, just all of that, the rich history, all in just 3 sentences. So to continue with the speech, Putin says, "Let me start with what I said in my address of February 21st this year. We are talking about what causes us particular anxiety about those fundamental threats that year after year, step by step, rudely and unceremoniously created by irresponsible politicians in the West in relation to our country." Very interesting here. Like, what's interesting about that? He says the West. Historically, so first of all, Russia has always existed in this, where do I fit in? With Asia or Europe? The West or the East? So it seems to me by calling irresponsible politicians in the West in relation to his country, it seems to me he is seeing Russia more as part of the East, maybe. More of Asia.
Or I think it's more of like the Russian sphere of influence rather than just the East. Because I don't really think anyone in Russia is considering themselves the East. I think they're kind of considering themselves the Russian sphere, if you will.
Yeah, okay. And then, so you might be wondering, well, what does Putin mean by this? Well, here's what he says. He says, "I mean the expansion of the NATO bloc to the east, bringing its military infrastructure closer to Russian borders. It is well known that for 30 years we have persistently and patiently tried to reach an agreement with the leading NATO countries on the principles of equal and indivisible security in Europe. In response to the proposals, we constantly faced either cynical deception and lies or attempt to pressure and blackmail by the North Atlantic Alliance, NATO. In the meantime, despite all our protests and concerns, is steadily expanding. The military machine is moving, and I repeat, is coming closer to our borders." That is where I think Putin is correct about. I don't know what you think about it, but if you look at a map of NATO in Europe,
NATO got bigger. NATO got bigger.
And it borders Russia, and and 3 countries in NATO border Russia. What is it? Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania.
Mostly Baltic states.
Yeah, I think Sweden too. Hold on, not Sweden. I think. Hold on, let me look at a map here.
Are you looking at NATO states?
Yeah, NATO map and Google Images, and because I always get like Finland and so. Let's see here. It doesn't. I always get like Finland and Norway. I think it's Norway.
Yeah, Finland is not in NATO.
No, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Norway. Mm-hmm. Norway borders Russia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania. Wait a minute. No, Romania borders Ukraine and Moldova.
Turkey's a NATO member.
Yeah, Turkey's close to Russia. Anyway, these countries are close to Russia. I mean, literally, some are bordering it. Now, you might be wondering, why? What's that? Why is that bad? These countries are allowed to have U.S. military bases and U.S. soldiers in them. Mm-hmm. Think about that.
Yeah.
Here in the United States of America, how would we feel if Mexico had Russian bases and Russian soldiers in it?
Yeah, or Canada, or Cuba. Remember when Cuba was...
Cuban Missile Crisis, 1963. Oh, yeah.
People's assholes puckered.
Well, and you know what the compromise of the Cuban Missile Crisis was? Turkey would remove Turkey would remove the U.S. missiles, and the USSR would remove the Cuban missiles.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think Putin is... I disagree with him invading Ukraine, obviously. When it comes to NATO, he has a strong point here. And that's why I also think China is kind of playing the fence here in this Ukraine-Russia crisis, because China is also seeing, hey, the United States is moving their influence, military influence, closer to us.
Yeah. So this is if you are Putin right now, this would be a reason to be concerned. We can exercise some empathy for fucking Vladimir Putin, if only to understand more about his position, especially because given the powers that he has, he effectively is making the decisions for all of Russia. So one thing that does come to my mind, though, is a couple things. So, he's referencing, I think he's referencing at this point, 30 years ago anyway, or no, it wasn't, maybe it was 30 years ago, but it was around the collapse of the Soviet Union. One of the agreements that is constantly brought up, and yeah, he actually is referencing this, was, NATO would promise not to expand. And if I remember right, this was a verbal agreement from the, I think it was from representatives of the United States. It was a verbal agreement. Kind of like how Russia also reached a verbal agreement that if Ukraine got rid of its nuclear weapons, then there would never be an invasion. So if there's one thing that we're learning here is that you should never expect to conduct international relations or hold anyone to an obligation on the international stage unless you get something in writing.
Yeah, but then again, I would never ever give up my nuclear weapons.
Well, Ukraine did. That's why Ukraine no longer is a nuclear power. So that's
after the fall of the Soviet Union and Ukraine became independent. Yeah.
So with that said, because we have mentioned, that NATO has grown, I guess the question that we need to ask ourselves is, why is that? Why have these countries decided to join NATO? Because NATO cannot really force a country to join it. It's done, let's be real, NATO has done some evil shit, right? Its purpose, at least on paper, is that of a defensive military alliance. So
it was created during the Cold War,
precisely,
to counter the USSR. I mean, it's outdated once the USSR fell.
Yeah. So why would these countries, like Estonia and Latvia, join NATO? What would be their motivations? Why would they be afraid of Russia, though?
I guess they're afraid that Russia would invade them, right?
Right. Kind of the obvious answer there. So, second, when it comes to these countries, I guess on the one hand, you could say that if you're in Putin's Oxfords or whatever the fuck he wears to work every day, you could expect or want NATO to decline their membership. But on the other hand, though, if these countries technically meet NATO's eligibility, these are sovereign states, mind you, if they meet the eligibility requirements and they receive a unanimous vote to join NATO, then who's to stop them? I'm not saying NATO is good or evil.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying there is a purpose. There is a purpose, and if you are these former, Warsaw Pact countries, like Lithuania or what have you, and you don't want to be invaded by Russia, which Russia has a long history of aggression towards its neighbors, you're gonna probably want to fucking try to join NATO. Unless you're already kind of like a Russian ally like Belarus, right? Belarus really doesn't have any incentive or reason to join NATO because they're on such great terms anyway. Why would they fucking bother? Yeah, they are like allies to Russia. So there would be no point in them joining, so they have no incentive to join. So, yeah, in terms of expansion, the expansion that's happened is kind of because these countries wanted to join NATO, and they are sovereign countries that get to make their own decisions, whether it's in Russia's best interest or not.
And so, and also one of the key thing about NATO too is that if any member country is attacked, invaded, whatever, the other countries have to come to their aid. That's also reminding me of World War I too, because another cause of World War I was alliances.
Yeah, very complicated alliance structures.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the UK is allied with Russia, and Russia is allied with Austria-Hungary or some shit.
No.
I forget my alliance. I forget my Entente.
Yeah.
And my...
Yeah. In World War I, it was Germany was allied with Austria-Hungary.
Oh, that's right.
And then Russia was allied with Britain and France. So France, Great Britain, Russia on one side, and then Germany and Austria-Hungary. So what happened is the Franz Ferdinand, the future leader of Austria-Hungary, was assassinated by terrorists Serbian terrorists, who wanted a separate, Serbia was their own country. Oh, okay. So they were assassinated by terrorists based on a nationalism, right? We want our own country, want freedom, or we want more land for our country, etc.
Yeah.
And so Austria-Hungary blamed the country of Serbia, invaded Serbia. Germany, hey, we're going to fight with our allies. Russia said, no, you're not invading Serbia because we got Serbia's back. Germany said, no, we got Austria-Hungary's back. So Germany attacks Russia. Russia attacks Austria-Hungary. France attacks Germany. Great Britain gets involved after Germany invades Belgium. Alliances. Very, very, very conducive to a world war.
Yeah.
NATO is a huge alliance.
One big alliance. Whereas Russia doesn't really have that many in terms of allies. I mean, I'm sure there's like this... Russia has its own kind of like complicated network of allies here and there. Whether they're kind of formally sworn to defend Russia in case of invasion, you know, like a NATO country kind of is, I don't know. But yeah, alliances can be the unintentional causes of wars rather than deterrents for wars.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, well, damn, now I gotta have your back because I promised. Anyway, yeah, I got a little mixed up there too with Serbia and Austria-Hungary. The terrorist group was Serbian, but it was from a movement known as Young Bosnia. So I guess they wanted their own land in the land that was then in the country that was then known as Austria-Hungary, because the Bosnia and Herzegovina were recently annexed by Austria-Hungary. And so the Serbian Black Hand intelligence organization, terrorist group, they did not want Austria-Hungary to exert that much control. So so this whole nationalism thing, I'm this ethnicity, I'm this ethnicity, I'm this ethnicity. I don't like that you're ruling my nationalism. And then you got alliances. I can see all of this in this Ukraine-Russia conflict.
There's some interesting parallels to make there.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep reading from his speech here? Because you left off at, let's see. The military machine is moving, and I repeat, it's coming close to our borders. So it's the following paragraph.
Yeah, so he says, why is this all happening? Where does this imprudent manner of speaking from the position of one's own exclusivity, infallibility, and permissiveness come from? Where does this disdainful attitude towards our interest and our absolutely legitimate demand come from? The answer is clear. Everything is clear and obvious. The Soviet Union in the late 80s of the last century weakened. Everything completely collapsed. The whole course of events that took place then is a good lesson for us today as well. It convincingly showed that the paralysis of power and will is the first step toward complete degradation and oblivion. As soon as we lost confidence in ourselves for some time, and that's it, the balance of power in the world turned out to be disturbed. So I guess he's talking about, he's blaming the Soviet Union's downfall to the, quote, paralysis of power and will, unquote.
That sounds... That's a weird statement, but the very first thing that kind of comes to my mind is... And this is not a one-for-one comparison, keep in mind that. You remember when, like, Hitler was basically talking about how the Germans had been victimized? They were a victimized people?
I do, and I actually... I gotta be careful how I say this.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Treaty of Versailles and what it did to Germany...
They were, actually. They were fucked.
The Germans were... screwed, yes.
Yeah, like the Treaty of Versailles was drafted in a way to deliberately keep Germany like permanently subjugated and impoverished and broken.
Yeah, and one of Hitler's biggest goals was to create what he said Lebensraum, or living space for the German people, because due to the Treaty of Versailles, you had ethnic Germans, or I should say German-speaking Germans, I guess. You had Germans in different parts of Europe that were not a part of Germany. So one of Hitler's goals was to unite all Germans in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I can see a little bit too with Putin as well.
Some like pan-ethnic kind of.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some kind of... I feel like it's more in between the lines here, because he's not explicitly saying the people of Russia have been like victimized by so and so. He's talking about, you know, the Soviet collapse, which was a very traumatic time for Russians. Well, anyone in the Soviet Union, but
in the former Soviet Union. Oh yeah,
yeah, but particularly Russians as well. You know, crime was rampant. You know, everything was uncertain. It was like a period of chaos. There was like the coup that was happening that failed, which also kind of contributed to the collapse. It was a complete fucking disaster. And, you know, many Russians struggled through that time. So the whole course of events, I'm kind of reading back here. The whole course of events that took place then is a good lesson for us today. It's convincingly showed that the paralysis of power and will is the first step towards complete degradation and oblivion. What the fuck?
Actually,
this is where I'm struggling to get what the fuck he's actually talking about.
That sounds very Nietzsche-esque.
It sounds...
Will. Power and will.
This is one of the parts of this speech that sounds like the most fascistic to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, like the triumph of the will, kind of.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like the documentary.
Will to power, yeah.
Yeah, even though Nietzsche wasn't a fascist, but you know his ideology was appropriated by the Nazis.
Yeah, it was appropriated. Yeah.
Yeah. That particular segment sounds very fascistic to me. You know, if will fails, then we will fall into like degradation, into oblivion.
Here's the thing. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we fail to exercise our power, then it's the first step to our like destruction, essentially.
Yeah. And one thing I was thinking about too, again, the importance of pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling?
Think about it. When you're giving the speech like this, the first thing you do in your speech, you start out your speech with something that the people know to be true, like NATO increasing their power. That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true. Now he's starting to mix a little bit of the truth with half-truth or no truth. But you always start with the people trusting what you say. That's what pro wrestlers do when they give their promos to be given to the people to try to get them to try to bolster interest in the matches. So interesting.
Mm-hmm. Good, very good point. I would not have thought about that actually.
Pro wrestling is life, man. It's life. It's psychology, and that's one part of that psychology. Putin is the bad guy. He's the, I hate to use pro wrestling terms, but he's the heel. But what did he start with in his speech? Tell the people something they know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to get all, like you said, it seems to get more fascistic now.
So let's move on.
Moving on. This has led to the fact that previous treaties and agreements are no longer in effect. Persuasion and request do not help. Everything that does not suit the hegemon, those in power, is declared archaic, obsolete, unnecessary, and vice versa. Everything that seems beneficial to them is presented as the ultimate truth. Pushed through at any cost boorishly by all means, dissenters are broken at the knee.
This feels like the pot calling the kettle black here.
Yeah.
Like, how often have Russia and Russian-backed separatists like repeatedly violated agreements that they've made with Ukraine over the past decade?
Yeah.
Like, this is like legit pot calling kettle black.
Yeah, so he's trying to say they're pushing, he's trying to say what the West wants, what they're pushing is what they want to be the ultimate truth. Mm-hmm. And anybody who dissents to their worldview, there is broken through the knee. So I can,
dissenters
that's the way I'm reading it.
Dissenters are broken through the knee, huh? That sounds like a very Russian thing to happen. I'm not gonna, let's be honest. Russia, a famously free freedom of speech society.
Oh yeah,
dissent is discouraged.
That's so weird because it's like you look at 19th century Russia and the great Russian literature and compare that to the 20th century Russia. It's like, maybe the Tsar had more freedom of speech in the Soviet Union. I'm just putting that out there. Maybe. I don't know.
Wait, what?
I don't know.
The
Tsar?
Think
about it.
I mean, they killed the Tsar. He doesn't get much freedom of speech because he's fucking dead.
I'm saying maybe the Tsarist regime in the 19th century had more freedom of speech than the Soviet Union regime in the 20th century. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. I don't know. It's a good question. It's a good historical question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask. I'm very skeptical if that's actually true.
Yeah. We'd have to look at the primary sources. We'd have to look at... So that would be a historical investigation. Very interesting. But I don't think Russia has ever been truly a free speech society, ever. I don't know.
Not famously free speech Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, here we definitely have, like the West in terms of international relations as like, not necessarily as like a single entity, but as like a block of Western countries, helps to kind of view it as a block. And they all have their own self-interests, and a lot of their self-interests kind of overlap. So there's a lot more cooperation, right? So the UK and France have like a high degree of cooperation, and UK and the United States also have, the same amount. So they're willing to kind of engage and cooperate more with each other to kind of achieve their own self-interest, even if it's like straight up fucking imperialism. And it should be noted and that just because something is within a country's self-interest, that's not a justification. That's a motivation, right? So it was like in the interest of the United States to invade Iraq and depose Saddam Hussein, mostly for materialistic reasons. None of the bullshit reasons about, like,
weapons of mass, yeah.
Yeah, that was all a big fucking lie. And you know what? There was nobody there to actually stop the U.S. Like,
and Bush is a war criminal. Bush the second.
Yeah, fucking war
Bush
criminal.
the second, you're a war criminal.
Let's be real. There are U.S. presidents, if we lived in a more just world, who would be charged with crimes against humanity, right?
For him in 2004.
Don't say that.
I did.
I know you did, but don't tell a fucking
world. Full of cum. What do you expect? I turned 18 in 2004. What do you expect?
I don't know, man.
When you're young, dumb, and cum, you vote for Republicans.
I guess so. Damn, dude. Oh, that's my change of thought. I guess what I'm saying here, though, is that on the one hand, the Western powers are very, if they can get away with it, fuck international law. They are like that. I mean, they have to at least pay some more or less lip service to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas, Russia, in this specific case of Ukraine, has essentially made multiple different, like, conflicting claims, right? So, like, on the one hand, Russia, or at least pro-Russian sources, or even we can say so-called, like, anti-imperialist sources, as they like to call themselves. Like, a lot of them said, it's American hysteria that Russia was going to invade Ukraine. And, all these figures did. Even from Edward Snowden, and a bunch of other, like, very public figures who have been, like, adamant, I guess, I don't know how you would say it, like, I guess activists against imperialism, right? And in this case, they were wrong. Russia did invade. And now the narrative has changed to where this is NATO. This is NATO's fault. It's all NATO's fault. It's all America's fault. Even though it's a very bizarre narrative. Because on the one hand, we've already kind of conceded that, yeah, NATO has expanded and gotten bigger, even though for some reason Russia did not demand that these countries, put that shit on paper. Verbal agreements and all that don't fucking mean shit in law. Well, it's not for the most part, but you know what I mean. But I guess, like, the point I'm trying to get to is that, like, this shit has, Russia is doing this too. Like,
yeah, pot calling kettle black, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's still unjustified at the end of the day. We've already acknowledged and kind of talked about what would motivate Vladimir Putin and his government to kind of pursue this course of action, as stupid as it is, especially because now Russia is stuck in this situation that they've caused, but it's not actually morally justified. It doesn't get you from, like, A to B, that Russia is justified to invade Ukraine based on XYZ. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So check out this paragraph that I'm about to read from this speech. Here again, he's telling the truth. He starts to get off track in the previous paragraphs, but now he's coming back to the truth. Here he goes again. And I quote, "What I'm talking about now concerns not only Russia and not only us. This applies to the entire system of international relations and sometimes even to the U.S. allies themselves. After the collapse of the USSR, the redivision of the world actually began, and the norms of international law that had developed by that time and the key basic ones were adopted at the end of the Second World War and largely consolidated its results."
Yeah.
So kind of confusing there what he's saying there. So so there's a hyphen. So let me go to that hyphen. So after the collapse of the USSR, the redivision of the world actually began, and the norms of international law that had been developed by that time began to interfere with those who declared themselves a winner in the Cold War.
Like, so, I think he's not wrong here. Like, the collapse of the USSR essentially paved the way for the United States in particular to exert global dominance rather than just half the fucking planet. Like, the US basically had no great obstacle left to impose, like, hegemony across the whole fucking world. And don't get me wrong, the Soviet Union was trying to do that too. Let's be real.
But let me tell you something though. Have you ever heard of the Bretton Woods Conference?
No. Hit me up with that.
Oh, yeah. So the Bretton Woods Conference, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why we didn't have a third world war after World War II. So the Bretton Woods Conference, formerly known as the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, was the gathering of 730 delegates from 44 allied nations during World War II at the Mount Washington Hotel situated in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, United States. Why? What was the point of this meeting? Pay attention. To regulate the international monetary and financial order after the conclusion of World War II. Basically, to create a capitalist world order so that any country that would go against this capitalist world order would face severe sanctions
Oh, that's a very good point, actually.
And you know what was established at the Bretton Woods Conference? How about the International Monetary Fund, IMF? How about the World Bank? No, wait a minute. World Bank. Yeah.
The one based in New York.
Yeah. How about the World Health Organization? I mean, there were coming out of this conference, you have a new economic world order. And that's what we're seeing right now so vividly with what's happening to Russia, when the entire world, except for a few key countries like China for some reason, are not sanctioning Russia. And what are they sanctioning Russia with? Economic sanctions. I mean, it all goes back to this Bretton Woods Conference in 1944.
Yeah. And I'm sure, especially given the context of the Cold War, I'm sure plenty of that was also to act as a measure against, like the spread of communism, right? Or, you know, what they called communism back then. I mean, obviously the Soviet world was very different from that.
It was a different economic system.
Yeah, I would say, radically different. State capitalist.
I want to apologize, too. The World Health Organization was established on April 7th, 1948. Not the Bretton Woods Conference. But the IMF and the World Bank were established at the Bretton Woods Conference.
I see.
Yeah, sorry. Correction.
So, like global dominance between the West, if you want to say the U.S. or just the West, doesn't matter, and the Soviet Union had radically different views and visions for the world, right? Yeah. Like, they were both domineering hegemons in their own way, with different goals. Yeah. But the one goal that was in common, for whatever reasons, was global dominance.
Yeah. I would say imperialism, like wanting to take over these countries and then tell them what your government should be, or no, we don't like that government. The USSR and the USA did the same thing.
There was a reason why nationalism, especially in the latter half of this previous century, was one of the reasons why the Soviet Union collapsed.
Oh, okay.
Like in Hungary, for example, right? You know, when the Soviet Union crushed the attempt at... you remember the Soviet intervention in Hungary during the Cold War?
Was that in the 50s? 1956?
I think so, yeah. It's literally where we kind of get the term tanky 56. From. Yeah. So part of that, if I remember right anyway, let me Google it. Soviet intervention in Hungary. The Hungarians were hungry. The Hungarian Revolution in 1956. Yeah. Is a it was essentially a countrywide revolution against, the Hungarian People's Republic, which was basically, like a Soviet satellite state. Yeah. And they were also protesting against the domestic policies that were imposed by the USSR. It did have a very strong nationalistic character to it, right? And of course, the outcome was it was repressed by the Soviets. But yeah, I guess one of the things that interests me, especially about the Cold War, is, what were the causes for this widespread nationalism in these Soviet republics, whether it's Kazakhstan or Ukraine or Poland or Hungary or so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and you look at too when the USSR collapsed. Look at the Bosnian War between 1992 and 95. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, the genocide, the quote unquote ethnic cleansing.
Yeah. So I guess the thing I'm trying to get to is that I'm not trying to say which world order is better. I think that's kind of like a stupid conversation to have.
Yeah.
I think the thing that interests me, though, is that even if we do agree that, the Western capitalist order was dog shit, which it was and still is, would a world where, let's say you live in Hungary, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Would you want to live in a world where all your domestic policies are actually made in Moscow?
No.
Yeah. Why would you want that? Nobody in their fucking right mind would want that. Like, people who don't even speak your fucking language, people who could give, less of a shit about you, fuck off.
But I'll even go a step further, man. When I say, at least in my opinion, I think that financial world order that was established in 1944, it seemed to have prevent another world war, even though it still led to untold suffering among millions upon millions of people who were not as powerful as the United States or the USSR, like Vietnam, proxy wars in Vietnam, proxy wars in Latin America, proxy wars in Africa.
Absolutely.
On the continent of Africa, I should say. And
yeah. No, that's all absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So
it's not like this world order prevented war. I just think it prevented another world war and nuclear war up to this point.
Right. It prevented World War III, but still brought us uncomfortably close to fucking World War III at the same time. So there's that too. And like I said, the current world order is a Western dominated one. It's still fairly neoliberal and all that. Yeah, and it's still rooted in imperialism and exploitation, and people, like millions of people, suffer and die every day when they don't have to. So I'm not trying to say the Soviet Union was just as bad or anything like that. Or
this isn't a blame game. No, it isn't. Yeah.
No, it's an observation that these two world orders sucked in their own unique ways. I don't know if you...
And caused a lot of suffering for the people who... proxy wars.
Yeah. And maybe it's a situation, if you even tried to compare them, it would be like trying to compare apples and oranges or whatever, or whatnot. But that said, I think I might have gotten completely off track at this point.
Well, let's continue.
I think, because if I keep continuing at that point, I'm just going to ramble.
So he continues, he says... Of course, in practical life and international relations, in the rules for their regulation, it was necessary to take into account changes in the situation in the world and the balance of power itself. However, this should not have been done professionally, smoothly, patiently, taking into account and respecting the interest of all countries and understanding our responsibility. A state of euphoria from absolute superiority, a kind of modern form of absolutism, and even against the backdrop of a low level of general culture and arrogance of those who prepared, adopted, and pushed through decisions that were beneficial only for themselves. This situation began to develop according to a different scenario. And so look at the examples he gives. You don't have to look for examples, he says. You don't have to look far for examples. First, without any sanction from the UN Security Council, it's so like, why don't you just come out and say they being the West, maybe?
Or NATO.
Oh, because they carried,
Yeah, he's talking about, the military operation, the bloody military operation against Belgrade using aircraft and missiles right in the very center of Europe. So he's referencing here the NATO bombings of Belgrade during the breakup of Yugoslavia, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, after the USSR.
Yeah.
Collapse.
So,
well, even though Yugoslavia was not a Soviet satellite.
It wasn't a Soviet satellite. No, it was... Yeah, it was independent of the Soviet Union.
Okay, yeah.
So...
It was friendly with them, though.
Complicated. It's complicated.
No, with Tito and them, yeah.
Yeah, Tito, there is kind of like a funny exchange between Tito and Stalin, where, Stalin was like trying to repeatedly have Tito killed, and Tito sent a letter to Stalin saying, hey, if you don't stop, I'm going to have someone come kill you. And then he stopped. It's like, okay, no more assassination attempts against Tito, apparently.
So that's what he's talking about here, though? Belgrade?
Yeah.
Belgrade?
So Belgrade is in Serbia, right? And this was kind of a issue. So Serbia, let me pull up my sources here so I don't misspeak.
He's going all the way back to the break, like 91, 92.
That's not that far. That wasn't that long ago. That was like...
Yeah.
So it was like...
This speech is so rich, man. Just, wow.
Yeah. So...
and it's so World War I. It's like, bro, you're like 80 years... Like, you're like 80 years old. This idea of nationalism, creating war, like, you're old. Like, ooh, that was so yesterday.
What? Is Vladimir Putin a fucking valley girl now?
No, I'm just saying, people who want to follow that nationalism bullshit in the 21st century, like, go back to fucking 100 years ago, bro. You're old. You're outdated. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, yeah. So,
it's like, I'm going to go back and wear fashion from the 1800s and 1914. Like, I don't know. I kind of do want to do that, actually. But no, never mind.
So let's cover up a little basics here, right? So the bombing of Yugoslavia, the one that Putin is mentioning here, that was carried out against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia during the Kosovo War. And the Kosovo War, for those of you who do not know, started back in 1998 and lasted until 1999.
Oh, okay.
So basically, you know,
specific here, like when it comes to years, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So like February 1998, June of 1999. Not a long fight. So it was fought by, you know, the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Serbia, and Montenegro, which controlled Kosovo before the war, and the Kosovo Albanian rebel group known as the Kosovo Liberation Army. And the conflict ended when NATO, you know, intervened by bombing Belgrade in March of 1999. And eventually the result was that the Yugoslav forces did withdraw from Kosovo, right? And this was like happening at a time when diplomatic attempts at resolution fell apart. So NATO decided to intervene. So they justified, I'm using justified in air quotes here, as a humanitarian war, right? So there was a mass expulsion of like...
Isn't that an oxymoron?
Yeah. It always, when a motherfucker says they're going for a humanitarian war, you know the motherfuckers are lying. So...
Yeah, it's a humanitarian.
So there was a mass expulsion of Kosovar Albanians, right? You know, Albanians living in Kosovo. And the Yugoslav military continued to fight them during the aerial bombing from March to June. And by the year 2000, there was this investigation done, right? And these multiple. These investigations recovered a bunch of remains from like 3,000 victims. And it was there was a UN court investigation held. It was based in Kosovo, and they found that there was a systemic campaign of terror, murders, rapes, and arsons that, you know, the Yugoslav troops tried to essentially ethnically cleanse the Albanians from Kosovo.
Okay.
So what happened as a result of the NATO bombing of Belgrade was that lots of innocent civilians were killed as a result. So it was really fucking bad.
Okay. So, yeah, Putin continues here after mentioning that. He says, we have to remind these facts. Otherwise, some Western colleagues do not like to remember those events. And when we talk about it, they prefer to point not to the norms of international law, but to the circumstances that they interpret as they see fit. Then came the turn of Iraq, Libya, and Syria. The illegitimate use of military force against Libya, the perversion of all decisions of the UN Security Council on the Libyan issue, led to the complete destruction of the state, to the emergence of a huge hotbed of international terrorism, to the fact that the country plunged into a humanitarian catastrophe that has not stopped for many years. Civil war, the tragedy which doomed hundreds of thousands, millions of people, not only in Libya, but throughout the region, gave rise to a massive migration exodus from North Africa and the Middle East to Europe. Yeah. So a similar fate, he says, a similar fate was prepared for Syria. The fighting of the Western coalition on the territory of this country without the consent of the Syrian government and the sanction of the UN Security Council is nothing but aggression, intervention.
Right.
Ooh. All right.
So let's be real. He is stating facts here. He's not making this shit up. He's pointing out very researchable facts. He may or may not be leaving out certain circumstances. I don't know, because I'm not an expert on all these interventions. But the things he's mentioning here are based in reality. NATO has done tons of evil shit as an organization, right? And usually the things that it has done that have been particularly fucking evil usually have been done in the interest of like Western countries.
Yeah.
So NATO is not a benign organization, but
not entirely benign.
Correct. So that said, though, I feel like this is him still kind of like pot calling kettle black at the same time.
Well, what I think he's trying to do is saying, well, I'm going to invade Ukraine. Well, you guys did it. I should be able to do it too. That's what the argument I think he's kind of setting up here.
You can say that. I think I can see kind of like that perspective as well.
It's a bullshit excuse because he's the aggressor. He should not be invading this country, Ukraine, but...
Yeah, because ultimately at the end of the day, if we're kind of like focusing in specifically when it comes to Ukraine, Vladimir Putin is essentially kind of like doing the exact same things.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Like, granted, he hasn't, like, to my knowledge, yet killed hundreds of thousands of, like, civilians or some shit like that. But that said, this still isn't a justification for invading Ukraine, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, look what he says in the next paragraph. This is something that we know to be true, at least part of it. So in the next paragraph, he says, however, a special place in this series is occupied, of course, by the invasion of Iraq. Also without any legal grounds. As a pretext, they chose reliable information allegedly available to the United States about the presence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. As proof of this publicly, and from the eyes of the whole world, the U.S. Secretary of State shook some kind of test tube with white powder, assuring everyone that this is a chemical weapon being developed in Iraq. And then it turned out this was all a hoax, a bluff. There was no chemical weapons in Iraq. Unbelievable, surprising, but the fact remains. There were lies at the highest state, the highest state level in the high rostrum of the UN, and as a result, huge casualties, destruction, and incredible surge of terrorism. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This is correct
can see
too.
Nothing wrong with that. So he says, yeah.
I'm still not hearing I'm not really hearing an argument for why the Ukrainian invasion is justified. These are just facts that just happen to be all correct.
Yeah, let me skip around then and see where,
I feel like the thing here is like, why would you trust NATO in the U.S. given, they have this long history of lying about shit, which is true. There is a long history of...
And we may be next. That's what he's basically trying to do. He's trying to, in his audience, because he's speaking to the Russian people, right? Historical thinking skills. Well, who's the source? Why are they giving this speech? Who is the audience? The audience is the Russian people. He's basically trying to say to the Russian people and Russia's allied countries, the U.S. and NATO did it to these places. They'll do it to you too, mother effer. So that's what so he's kind of, so it seems to me in this speech, it's sort of like Mark Antony in Julius Caesar, Shakespeare, one of his best plays.
Yeah.
The funeral speech, Mark Antony, he's trying to turn the people against NATO and the West, I guess. The West, you get what he calls the West. I'm going to skip around a little bit here to see what his justification for invading Ukraine is.
Yeah, because I'm just reading the next paragraph. I mean, this is all facts. That's true. Not about invading. Nothing really justifying the whole Ukraine bit, though. Let's see here. Let me read this part. In this series, in promises to our country not to expand NATO by 1 inch to the east, I repeat, they deceived me, but in popular terms, they simply threw it away. Yes, you can often hear that politics is a dirty business. Perhaps, but not to the same extent. Not to the same extent, after all. Such cheating behavior contradicts not only the principles of international relations, but above all, the generally recognized norms of morality. And morality? What? Did he say morality twice?
I think it's maybe an error.
Maybe. I'll just say, but above all, the generally recognized norms of morality. Where is justice and truth here? What a bunch of lies and hypocrisy. I feel like the majority of this speech is not meant to actually justify, I think, not to be an explicit justification, but rather an implicit justification. Even like, because given his audience, obviously, it's not the rest of the fucking world. It's to, you know, like it's to Russians. So there's really not an argument still being made, even implicitly. It's meant to kind of like, how do I say this? Well, maybe if we keep reading. It's like the West is essentially saying, you know, the West is dangerous. You know, they don't care about international law, yada, 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 yada. Even if this is all true, like, okay, you're still invading a country that's not in NATO, bro.
Yeah.
The leading NATO countries, in order to achieve their own goals, support extreme nationalists and neo-Nazis in Ukraine and everything. So this is the thing that I kind of mentioned earlier, right? Where this is also pot calling kettle black. So, and you know what? And here's the thing. I'm not like a big supporter of NATO, and this is actually correct. Yeah, NATO has in fact supported, they've collaborated, well, maybe not NATO, but NATO countries rather. You know, they have collaborated with like Nazis and shit like that, right? But we know for a fact too that Russia is too. Hence, is Russia like, like, is Russia also trustworthy? Like, you are also Russia is literally doing the same thing here. And I feel like this is a classic example of whataboutism. I feel like this is more explicit. Well, no, it's not explicit whataboutism, because explicit whataboutism would be like, you know, if you were accused of something, right? And then you accuse the other person of doing something, you know, that's also really bad, right? Yeah. Like, let's say, you know, I accuse you of being a murderer, and I'm like, well, you're an arsonist. Does that make me right in any sense? No.
Yeah.
It's a deflection. It's a deflection, right? So this is not explicitly whataboutism here. This is just him saying that here's something they're doing. And he's obviously, you know, not bringing up the fact that his government does it too.
I'm gonna scroll down a little bit here. To, well, hold on, let me show you. Page 5 in the notes, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraph. Then now you're starting to get more to Ukraine.
Okay.
The previous paragraphs are just him going through his version of history, and again, it's more like that implicit, like you said. I'm at the part where it says, in this regard, and about the situation in Donbass, or is it Donbass, is it?
You can say Donbass.
Donbass. So he says, skipping ahead, in this regard, and about the situation in Donbass, we see that the forces that carried out a coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014 seized power and are holding it with the help of, in fact, decorative electoral procedures. Decorative, or fake, I guess. Have finally... Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I feel like that's also the same allegation that countries... Because he's talking about the overthrow of the former president of Ukraine, a guy named... oh, God. I don't know how to pronounce his fucking name. It's like...
We apologize.
I believe it was Viktor Yanukovych. So Viktor Yanukovych, he was like the fourth president of Ukraine from around 2010, and he was removed from office in the 2014, you know, Euromaidan revolution, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So it was like a mass popular protest, right? And they, the government killed some protesters, actually. So essentially, like the super oversimplified version of what happened was that the Yanukovych government was offered deals to possibly enter the European Union, right? They rejected those deals, and it was partly because, you know, Russia was offering better deals to them. So essentially, one of the kind of popular theories out there is that the government currently in Ukraine is kind of like a Western puppet government, right?
Oh, okay.
Which even if we grant that, even if we actually say that's correct, and I'm not saying that's correct, but assuming that is correct, how does that justify the invasion? Like, how does that actually justify bringing your military in to like literally fire missiles and occupy another country? Unless Ukraine was going to like attack you, which why would they do that? So that said, though, even though there was definitely like some outside involvement in the revolution, I definitely don't deny that. This was still also a popular revolution against his government because a lot of the people there in Ukraine weren't particularly happy that this guy was moving closer towards Russia.
Okay.
So it's very complicated, and I think maybe we could benefit by doing an episode about that so we can learn more.
Yeah, that'd be excellent, man.
Yeah, but this guy was also massively fucking corrupt. Viktor Yanukovych, dude was corrupt as fuck, right?
Yeah, and you say he was friendly toward more Russian influences?
But there's also like lots of criticisms and allegations about, cronyism, especially from like ministers from like the Donbass region, oddly enough. So he was accused of like regional cronyism with like essentially like filling his government with like people from Donbass specifically. There's a lot more that goes into it too. I mean, he's a fucking tycoon and all that.
Oh, okay.
Dude is rich, and he's living in exile in Russia today. But essentially, after they ousted him, they essentially held new elections.
Okay.
And that's essentially that's kind of what he's referencing. This is what Vladimir Putin is referencing at this point.
Okay. Yeah, because I was ignorant of that history. I did not know.
I'm not an expert of it either, and it's kind of like why I want to read more about it so I can kind of have a better...
pretty fascinating. I mean...
Yeah, because ultimately, like, this is a situation where I actually don't know very much. Just, like, cards on the table. I don't know the ins and outs of the situation. It's a very...
Yeah, I know more about the history, as opposed to, like, the current context, like this 2014 thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So Putin continues so that we see the forces that carried out the coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014 seize power and are holding it with the help of, in fact, decorative electoral procedures, have finally abandoned the peaceful settlement of the conflict. For 8 years, endlessly long 8 years, we have done everything possible to resolve the situation by peaceful political means, all in vain. So he says, continuing, as I said in my previous address, one cannot look at what is happening there without compassion. It is simply impossible to endure all this. It is necessary to immediately stop this nightmare, the genocide against millions of people living there who rely only on Russia, hope only on us. It was these aspirations, feelings, pain of people that were there for us, the main motive for making a decision to recognize the People's Republics of Donbass. What I think important to emphasize further. The leading NATO countries, in order to achieve their own goals, support extreme nationalists and neo-Nazis in Ukraine and everything, who in turn will never forgive the Crimeans and Sevastopol residents for their free choice reunification with Russia. So now he's talking about the Crimean Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
I can never say that word, Crimean, and the election in 2014 was it? Where supposedly 97% of the Crimean people wanted Crimea to go back to Russia or go to Russia.
I don't know the stats about that. I think that's another thing we'd probably have to look into before I feel comfortable commenting on it.
Yeah, me too. But he's referencing recent history though. So so basically what we do know confidently is that he's referencing recent history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they, of course, he says, will climb into the Crimea, just like in Donbass, with a war in order to kill as punishers from the gang. There are a lot of commas here. So they, of course, will climb into the Crimea, and just like in the Donbass with a war in order to kill as punishers from gangs of Ukrainian nationalists, Hitler's accomplices killed. Sorry, there are like so many like commas in there.
Yeah.
So
it's very disjointed.
Yeah, because this is a speech after all. We're reading a transcription of it. Entire course of events and analysis of incoming information show that Russia's clash with these forces is inevitable. It is only a matter of time. They're getting ready. They're waiting for the right time. Now they also claim to possess nuclear weapons. We will not allow this to be done. So he's basically saying, so what I just read to you, that sounds like a preemptive strike. He's saying Russia needs to do a preemptive strike. Well,
especially the claim to possess nuclear weapons, that's a fucking lie. He's just lying at that point.
Yeah. So let's go here to where he talks more about Ukraine, because now he gets back into more USSR history. But Russia cannot feel safe, develop, exist with a constant threat coming from the territory of modern Ukraine. Okay?
No, he said the territory of modern Ukraine.
The territory, not their own independent country.
Yeah. Also, it's kind of interesting that, let's see here, I'm reading at a different part than you are, I think.
Okay.
As I said earlier, after the collapse of the USSR, Russia accepted new geopolitical realities. We respect and will continue to treat all the newly formed countries in the post-Soviet space with respect, except Ukraine and Georgia. We respect and will continue to respect their sovereignty. And an example of this is the assistance we provided to Kazakhstan, which faced tragic events with a challenge to its statehood and integrity. But Russia cannot feel safe, develop, exist with a constant threat emanating from the territory of modern Ukraine.
Yeah.
So I feel like would you consider this doublespeak? On the one hand, you have him talking about how Russia will respect the sovereignty of all these other countries in the post-Soviet space, and then says like the territory of modern Ukraine.
Well, they don't see Ukraine as a separate country. He doesn't see him.
Right.
Ukraine, yeah.
So he's contradicting himself here, of course. He's obviously contradicting himself here. Like, none of the shit that he's talked about previously backs up this. All the shit about Nazis and NATO and other shit doesn't have anything to do with this particular claim here.
Yeah. This is another reason why he invaded Ukraine. I think one was NATO, the growing influence of NATO, and the second one was this.
And there could be other...
He sees Ukraine.
Yeah, and there could be other reasons too as well. So he's mentioning here, let me remind you that in 2000 through 2005, we gave a military rebuff to terrorists in the Caucasus, defended the integrity of our state, saved Russia. What? What? Was Russia in danger of being conquered by somebody? Wonder what he's referring to here.
So again, he's using another great speech element of speech hyperbole.
Yeah,
I saved the country. I'm
typing here, but you can feel free to keep reading.
So yeah, in 2014, they supported the Crimeans and the Sevastopol residents. In 2015, the armed forces used to put a reliable barrier to the penetration of terrorists from Syria into Russia. We had no other way to protect ourselves. The same thing is happening now. You and I simply have not been left with any other opportunity to protect Russia, our people, except for the one that we will be forced to use today. Circumstances which require us to take decisive and immediate action. The People's Republics of Donbass turned to Russia with a request for help. Ooh. That's always a bad pretext for invasion. In this regard, in accordance with Article 51 of Part 7 of the UN Charter, with the sanction of the Federal Council of Russia, and in pursuance of the Treaties of Friendship and Mutual Assistance ratified by the Federal Assembly on 22nd February this year, with the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic, I decided to conduct a special military operation. Its goal is to protect people who have been subjected to bullying and genocide by the Kyiv regime for 8 years, And for this, we will strive for the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, as well as bringing to justice who committed numerous bloody crimes against civilians, including citizens of the Russian Federation.
Maybe,
so again, we're kind of, interesting.
Maybe given that Russia does have a neo-Nazi problem of its own, if it's so concerned with denazification, you might want to try your own borders first. But that's just a pretext. It's not even, it's a fucking pretext, because it's ultimately at the end of the day, he's equating, the Ukrainian government as essentially like collaborating with Nazis, which I guess in one light, I mean, having a neo-Nazi battalion in your National Guard that emerged as a result of, the war with Ukraine and Donbass and all those republics, true. But that said, if your own government is also collaborating with neo-Nazis, not just in that particular case, but also in Europe, like, it's kind of a confirmed fact that the Russian government had intelligence agencies working with, one example is the Hungarian National Front, which is a far-right neo-Nazi party in Hungary. So this is just a bad faith. He's just talking in bad faith here. As for the claims about genocide, pretty sure we would have heard about that by now.
Yeah, we heard of the Uyghurs and the Rohingya, but who's being genocided? to use a verb that doesn't exist.
It's because he's lying. That's why.
He keeps going back and forth to history here, like keeping going on. He's saying, at the same time, our plans do not include the occupation of Ukrainian territories. We are not going to. It's like you have to occupy it. How else are you? We're not going. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wouldn't a denazification imply that you'd have to occupy the country first before you supposedly denazify it, my dude? But again, it's not serious. It's just cynical and self-serving. That's it.
Yeah, and he says, we are not going to impose anything on anyone by force. At the same time, we hear that recently in the West, there are more and more words that the documents signed by the Soviet totalitarian regime, which consolidate the results of the Second War, should no longer be carried out.
What?
I don't know. So he says we are not going to impose on any. So at the same time, we hear that recently in the West, there are more and more words that the documents signed by the Soviet totalitarian regime, which consolidate the results of the Second World War, should no longer be carried out. I don't know what documents he's talking about.
Neither do I. I don't. Yeah.
He says, well, what is the answer to this? The results of the Second World War, as well as the sacrifice made by our people on the altar of victory over Nazism, are sacred. But this does not contradict the high values of human rights and freedoms based on the realities that have developed today over all the post-war decades. It also does not cancel the right of nations to self-determination enshrined in Article 1 of the UN Charter. Let me remind you that neither during the creation of the USSR nor after the Second World War, people living in certain territories that are part of modern Ukraine, no one ever asked how they themselves want to arrange their lives. Our policy is based on freedom, the freedom of choice for everybody to independently determine their own future and the future of their children. And we consider it important that this right, the right to choose, could be used by all the peoples living in the territory of today's Ukraine, by everyone who knows it.
Again, there's that word. Territory.
Territory, yeah. It's kind of like the China and Taiwan thing.
Yeah.
In this regard, I appeal to the citizens of Ukraine. In 2014, Russia was obliged to protect the inhabitants of Crimea and Sevastopol from those whom you yourself call Nazis. Crimeans and Sevastopol residents made the choice to be with their historical homeland, with Russia. And we supported this. I repeat, they simply could not do otherwise. Well, that's kind of literally.
Interesting.
No, they had a gun up their ass. Of course they couldn't do otherwise.
And the guys who did want to were given guns by Russia.
Yeah. Today's events are not connected with the desire to infringe on the interest of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. They are connected with the protection of Russia itself from those who took Ukraine hostage and are trying to use it against our country and its people. Man, where is he pulling this stuff out of?
I mean, yeah. Part of the rhetoric that he's employing here is to give you, a Russian citizen, a proud, patriotic Russian citizen, that his government is acting on your self-interest, right? Not just your interest, but like, the common interest of the people of Ukraine as well, because neo-Nazis are in the government, right? Then apparently he's essentially calling, the government a neo-Nazi regime, which I'm like, it's surprisingly very democratic for a neo-Nazi state.
I'm like, dude, Zelensky is Jewish. The fuck?
So, like, on the one hand, I will say this, right? I don't know if this is necessarily comparable or not. So, on one hand, you know how people say, in the United States, oh, well, there can't be racism anymore. Barack Obama was elected president, right? Yeah. But at the same time, though, I don't think this is necessarily the same case, where you do have this long-established system of racism in the U.S. I don't know if this is necessarily comparable. But then again, though, there is no neo-Nazi party that has seized power in Ukraine. He's lying. He's just lying about this.
Jeez, this guy. Like, I'm with him on NATO. Like, you make a great point, but for this, I'm like, you're literally sticking your hand up your butt and pulling whatever comes out.
And the weird thing too is,
literally, but
and the weird thing too is that unless we somehow like overlooked it or missed it, he didn't necessarily connect the two, the Ukrainian Nazis ruling over Ukraine and NATO.
No, I haven't seen it either.
No, he doesn't really make that connection. He just kind of keeps mentioning NATO bad, which, NATO bad. However, in this situation between you and Ukraine, you are actually doing the bad.
Yeah. Oh, this is... So he says, to continue, I repeat, our actions are self-defense against the threats posed on us and from even a greater disaster than is what is happening today. No matter how difficult it may be, I ask you to understand this and call for cooperation in order to turn this tragic page as soon as possible and move forward together. Not to allow anyone to interfere in our affairs, in our relations, but to build them on our own so that it creates necessary conditions for overcoming all problems. And despite the presence of state borders, which strengthen inside as a whole. And this is our future. I should also appeal to the military personnel and the armed forces of Ukraine. Dear comrades, your fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers did not fight the Nazis, defending our common motherland, so that today's neo-Nazis seize power in Ukraine. Oh my God. You took an oath of allegiance to the Ukrainian people and not to the anti-people junta that plunders Ukraine and mocks these same people. Jeez, this guy's coming on strong.
The anti-people junta, huh?
Anti-people junta. Wow. You got a neo-Nazi government in Ukraine whose president is a Jewish guy. Wow, wow. Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. Like, going back to my earlier example, right? So, like, about how, the U.S., so if you make the argument, like the U.S. can't be racist because, black president and all that.
Yeah.
Like, I think the big difference here is that racism is a system that privileges one race or one group of people over other racial groups in society at their expense. This doesn't necessarily mean that someone from a marginalized group can't become head of state, right? Whereas neo-Nazis are kind of different, right? Neo-Nazis are very much anti-democratic, very anti-Jewish. Their goal is usually to exterminate Jews whenever they have power. I don't really see that happening in Ukraine. Now, there is a problem. There is a problem with Nazis in Ukraine, but that's radically different than saying neo-Nazis have power in Ukraine.
So Putin just seems to be Putin just seems to be connecting two unrelated things.
But he doesn't even make the connection, is the thing. Like, he's trying to in his speech, but he doesn't. He kind of wants you to do it for him. And part of what I think is like the great media strategy here is that if you say enough times, you implicitly kind of associate Ukraine with Nazis.
Gosh. Yeah, so to end his speech here, he says, "Don't follow her criminal orders." Ukraine being her. "I urge you to lay down your weapons immediately and go home." Let me explain. All servicemen of the Ukrainian army who fulfill this requirement will be able to freely leave the combat zone and return to their families. Once again, I insistently emphasize all the responsibility for possible bloodshed will be entirely on the conscience of the regime ruling on the territory of Ukraine. And this is the last one, last paragraph. Now a few important, very important words for those who may be tempted to intervene in the ongoing events. Whoever tries to hinder us, and even more so to create threats for our country, for our people, should know that Russia's response will be immediate and will lead you to such consequences that you have never experienced in your history. We are ready for any development of events. All necessary decisions in this regard have been made. I hope that I will be heard. That's a nuclear threat. That has to be.
It's an explicit threat. It's an explicit threat. Whether it's nuclear or not, it's explicit.
So, but anyway, that's the speech. What's below that is just further remarks made by Putin overnight after he invaded. So.
Wow, we sure learned a lot today, didn't we?
Well, we learned about this guy's justification.
It's not really justified at all.
No, it's not. No.
All you need was some critical reading skills to kind of see that.
And a little background, too, into the history. We can't really, for complete honesty, you and I both agree that in terms of the recent history, the 2014 events, we really don't know enough to be able to intelligently, right?
Yeah.
Talk about those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, wow.
This is pretty incoherent, ultimately.
I kind of agree, incoherent. A lot of rambling on from him. You know, what happened to the Spartan laconic, speech?
If this were laconic, this would be like 10 words, and then it would be done.
I invade your country. Fuck you up.
We're invading, lick my ass.
Laconic.
Like Putin, it's called
Laconic.
Laconic.
So, yeah. So we agree that it's pretty fucking incoherent, but then again, it's not meant really to be coherent. It's meant to kind of, at least I believe, draw, constantly build associations to the audience, whom are Russian citizens rather, that, between NATO, Ukraine, and Nazis.
NATO, Ukraine, and Nazis. Geez, that should be the title of a book or something.
Yeah, he doesn't make any arguments here or really links them. The goal of the speech is if he just says it enough times, you'll just associate it with it, Yeah.
Isn't
Mentally.
that like the goal of propaganda, to inundate the people with falsehoods so they'll believe it?
Yeah, or at the very least, create plausible deniability. So even if they don't believe it, they can still doubt whatever narrative their own governments are kind of telling about it. And don't get me wrong, you should always be skeptical of whatever is fucking being told to you by any state. Doesn't matter whether it's the US or Russia or what have you. But yeah, we do have historical examples in recent history of, Putin's regime fucking lying about shit, and they're lying again. They don't fucking care though that they're lying. And those are my thoughts at the moment.
Yeah, mine too, and they can always change because this is the dynamic situation. It could change literally in any minute.
Yeah. Another thing I also remember too, the constant subtle associations with Ukraine not being a country, but rather a territory. With a regime, which I guess technically would imply a country. However, that being said, he wants his audience to believe that Ukraine is not a real country, despite earlier in his speech saying that, Russia would respect the sovereignty of all the countries in post-Soviet space. And if you follow this train of logic, if you constantly deny Ukraine as a sovereign country, then by this thinking, you're not actually contradicting yourself. Even though in reality, you absolutely are. You're just making up a bullshit. You're just kind of making up bullshit to keep it going.
And I love how he did the pro wrestling thing. Start with something the people know to be true. He starts with NATO. He doesn't start with that bullshit Nazi stuff that he ends with. He starts with NATO.
Yeah.
So that as he goes along and starts to bend the truth and just completely throw truth out the window, it plants that little seed of doubt. Because you're like, well, this guy, well, he was right about NATO. He could be right too. Huh, interesting. Trick him. That's how you trick them. That's how you trick the public. Psychology, man. Pro wrestling.
Yeah, and given that we're seeing, these protests against the war in Russia, it doesn't sound like Russians in particular are buying it. Let me see. Russia.
That's how we should conclude then. We should urge the Russian people to unite against Putin. And you know what? Let's not even be like classist here, right? Mm-hmm. Every Russian person, whether it be a billionaire tycoon to a small peasant with little to no money, come together. Shine for your brothers and sisters. I was about to quote those lyrics, but I forgot. Dang it. The only thing I've been quoting nowadays are like Public Enemy. My Uzi weighs a ton. Public Enemy #1. Sophisticated bitch, stuff like that.
Oh, of course.
Sophisticated.
So, but to conclude this, I want to play a video, and I want you to kind of go with me.
Ooh, okay. Well, you have to let me know, because when you play something, I can't hear it.
Yeah, so it's not just so-called Western countries and NATO who are against this. There are countries not in NATO who know Russia's full of shit on this, or Vladimir Putin at least is full of shit on this. So one of the best speeches I heard basically calling out Russia, I will link this to you here, is from Kenya's ambassador to the UN. It's his speech. So do you have it pulled up right now? This is a very short speech. It's only like a few minutes. So
yeah, I do. I'll mute my mic and play it, because I don't know if when I play it, it can show up. So I'll mute my mic and play it.
Okay, so I'm going to play it in 3, 2, 1.
Kenya and almost every African country was birthed by the ending of empire. Our borders were not of our own drawing. They were drawn in the distant colonial metropoles of London, Paris, and Lisbon, with no regard for the ancient nations that they cleaved apart. Today, across the border of every single African country live our countrymen, with whom we share deep historical, cultural, and linguistic bonds. At independence, had we chosen to pursue states on the basis of ethnic, racial, or religious homogeneity, we would still be waging bloody wars these many decades later. Instead, we agreed that we would settle for the borders that we inherited, but we would still pursue continental political, economic, and legal integration. Rather than form nations that looked ever backwards into history with a dangerous nostalgia, we chose to look forward to a greatness none of our many nations and peoples had ever known. We chose to follow the rules of the Organization of African Unity and the United Nations Charter, not because our borders satisfied us, but because we wanted something greater, forged in peace. We believe that all states formed from empires that have collapsed or retreated have many peoples in them yearning for integration with peoples in neighboring states. This is normal and understandable. After all, who does not want to be joined to their brethren and to make common purpose with them? However, Kenya rejects such a yearning from being pursued by force. We must complete our recovery from the embers of dead empires in a way that does not plunge us back into new forms of domination and oppression. We rejected irredentism and expansionism on any basis, including racial, ethnic, religious, or cultural factors. We reject it again today.
That was the ambassador of Kenya.
Yeah, and it brings me to yet another cause of World War I, imperialism.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up.
It's wrapping.
It's wrapping. So thank you for tuning in once again, everybody, to another fun-filled episode of Ministrymodus. Make sure to check us out on Twitter at Ministrymodus, or check us out on YouTube for clips at Ministrymodus as well. You can also reach us at email at martinandcornbread@gmail.com. All one word, martinandcornbread@gmail.com. So with that said, Martin, you have a rhyme or a story to tell?
I got a big story to tell. It's a story as ancient as a well. You understand where people used to get their water. And the story is this. One heart, two hearts, all hearts in the world were captured by a man of time. And this man worked in Ghana and one day asked the guy who drove him around how he felt about his nation's past and how he'd been treated. And he had the foresight and wisdom to be the ambassador. And he ate so much food that when he gave a speech, he thought about it and said, look, in the four corners of the world, all men are brothers. Amen.
That was beautiful.
I was actually going through the comments of that video and I was ad-libbing based on some of the comments of that video.
That was some good ad-libbing, I'll give you that.
Ad-libbing.
You had me captivated even when you're talking about eating lots of food.
Hold it. I want to make sure I get that quote right from the Water Martians. Water Martians. Oh, in the four seas, all men are brothers is one translation from the Chinese. So
powerful quote. All right, folks. As we say in France, adios.